And now, after Aegon and his dragon have been resurrected, there could be no clearer sign of whom the gods have chosen to rule, Princess.
I am queen. The old man forgets. I wear my father's crown and sit his throne, with 6 dragons at my heel. You will not deny me my right a second time.
Welcome back to the official Game of Thrones podcast, House of the Dragon. I am Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Greta Johnson, and today we are back with a special bonus episode talking all about the season finale and season 3 of House of the Dragon as a whole.
And we will be joined by some great guests to talk about it all with. First, we'll be joined by our Dragon Riders, who made some pretty crucial decisions this season. Clinton Liberty, who plays Addam of Hull, Kieran Bew, who plays Hugh the Hammer, and Tom Bennett, who plays Ulf White.
Then we will talk with Phia Saban, who plays Queen Helaena Targaryen. Plus, we'll also talk with the director of the finale, Andrij Parekh. In case you missed it, we did already discuss the season finale of the show, and we had some great guests on that episode. We got to talk to the Emma Darcy and Matt Smith, and we also spoke to showrunner and co-creator Ryan Condal and T. McHale, who both wrote that finale.
There's a lot to talk about. Let's just jump in.
I require full escort to the Grand Sept. There, today, the High Septon will anoint me and bless my reign for all of King's Landing to see. There'll be no doubt who the gods have chosen to rule.
Oh my God. So, Jason, before we dive into the interviews, we are here at the end of the season. Let's take a moment just to talk about the season as a whole, especially thematically, because I feel like we have kind of checked in on this a little bit as we have gone along. But now that we really have seen all 8 episodes and had a chance to think about it, what do you think is one of the bigger themes that we're walking away with this season?
I mean, how power corrupts, the pursuit of it. Not even having it fully, just pursuing it is enough to corrode one's spirit, to cause immense damage to everyone around you. I mean, we see it in this over the course of this season. Even people who aren't really like in the driver's seat per se,
right? Just
being close, and wanting to stay close, causes people to make trade-offs about who they are as a person, and it's really sad to see.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this a little bit last episode, but Alan is such a stark example of that. Like, to think about his arc over this season, I mean, he killed a Septon.
That seems like you could order someone else to do that, right?
Yeah, you would
When
think.
you just be like, turn to one of your guys and go get him. Why is it gotta, just as a CYA kind of... From that perspective, maybe get somebody else to do it.
Delegate that one.
Delegate that one. You get the sense from Alan in that episode that he's maybe not all that eager to rescue Corlys from his imprisonment.
Yeah, I think another really big one, which we have talked about before too, is just that question of can you hold on to who you are and rule at the same time, which I think is very connected to what you're talking about with power corrupting.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially Rhaenyra, she's making some tough calls, and it is not going the way she needs it to.
I mean, I can.
Oh, you can?
100%.
Oh,
I could do it.
You could do it?
I could do it if called upon.
Wow.
I believe it.
All right.
No, it's notable that everybody, when confronted with this idea, Mysaria and Rhaenyra notably, are just like, what?
Right.
No way.
Fine.
I'm the same.
I'm a really good person.
Come on.
I can totally do this.
I know.
Yeah, no, there are just so many other systems at play every time,
Well, I mean, there's a logic to power that is not like a dialogue with the person who's trying to wield it. It's once you're in the pursuit of it, to stay in the pursuit of it demands things that make sense within that. But obviously will change the person. And I think we see Rhaenyra and even Mysaria, their worldview gets so distorted by what's happening. It makes sense to them. Of course, I'm still working for the benefit of the small folk. That's why I brought you here.
For the little guy.
That's why I brought you here, Madam Sylvie, to discuss that. Yes, I'm wearing clothes that cost as much as several houses, but that's just what you have to do.
Yeah.
And I guess it happens gradually from that perspective. So you don't even realize it's happening. Who do you think changed the most?
I do think Alan changed a lot.
He did.
Like, I would not have guessed that he would be willing to kill a faith leader for Rhaenyra by the end of this. Who do you think changed the most? I mean, Rhaenyra.
Yeah, but was that always inside of Rhaenyra? That's the other thing I wonder.
Yeah.
With the Targaryens in particular, or are we not just kind of revealing them?
Yeah.
How about this? Aegon in the reverse way, in the good way.
Our buddy Aegon, our new best friend.
Listen, all you need to do is, carry a few buckets of piss for the good of the community.
Well, also be brutally burned and almost die and lose your dragon, and,
right?
And
have to walk. Instead of fly around, be ground level with the people, and your whole worldview can shift.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, he changes a tremendous amount.
He does. Well, and to that end, Aemon does too. And it's pretty interesting to think about how they sort of like Aegon gets his dragon and Aemon loses his dragon and what that does to each of them.
And then we should talk about Ulf's betrayal, which is something that feels like it's been coming for a long time, all the way back to the middle of the previous season.
Totally. Yeah.
Any surprise to you that this happened?
No, I feel like we talked about it a little bit in the last episode. I think the surprise to me is that, I don't think of Ulf as a violent person. But I do think once you have a dragon, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about, I mean, Ulf is clearly highly unpredictable.
Yeah.
And is going to do whatever the hell he wants. And had been treated very poorly by both sides. And so to that end, it's not surprising at all, right?
I think that's right. And, there's a lot of talk in this season about not just how power changes you, but Helaena mentions, how dragons change a person.
Yes.
And it made me think, other than archery, and we see Black Alley take out Kristen Cole from a good, decent distance, good shot, little head from far away, hits it right in the cheek. But it's not like when you take lives in this world, it's usually right up close, not from the air, flying. And I wonder, to your point about Ulf not being a violent person, it must seem fake almost to him from up there.
I think you're totally right, too. I mean, that's something that they have, we've had conversations with showrunner Ryan Condal throughout these 3 seasons. That analogy of dragon as nuclear weapon has been there from the beginning. I think in this season, probably, more than the other 2 so far, I think, we're really seeing that in action and the devastation it causes.
Yeah. With that, I think we should go to our first interview with our Dragon Riders, Tom Bennett, who plays Ulf, Kieran Bew, who plays Hugh the Hammer, and Clinton Liberty, who plays Addam of Hull. Tom, Kieran, and Clinton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So what were your reactions when you first read the scripts for this finale?
I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I was like, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And I genuinely couldn't believe what I was watching. And then you kind of, because when you're watching it, I don't know if you guys get this, do you kind of forget that you're a part of it? Because you're just looking
in a way,
in awe.
yeah.
Like,
in a way. Like, there were definitely, I had 2 moments reading the series at home on my own where I had to put it down and just go, shit, did I just fucking read that?
Yeah.
And then had the moment of, oh, well, I'll be dead in the next episode. Oh, fuck, I'm dead now.
Yeah.
And then I read it and I wasn't dead. And we can give spoilers away. I'm not dead. So good luck. You got me next season as well.
It is a relief to be alive. Tom, let's start with Ulf's betrayal. It feels like he's been leading up to this point, tell us about that turn.
It does feel like we've been leading up to it, doesn't it? It does feel like
Matter
we've
of
been
time.
Yeah.
So there is a moment at which Ulf goes, right, I've got this.
Yeah.
Right, I want this now. And you're not giving me that. And that's pissed me off. Oh, and now you want to hit me?
Yeah.
Oh, and you're hitting me again? And now this prick's hit me as well? Well, you're all pissing me off. And I think you've forgotten I've got a dragon. So there's a real frustration in Ulf that he doesn't get the castle, he doesn't get the horse, he doesn't get the women, he doesn't get the quail, and it pisses him off. And then people are still treating him like shit.
Yeah.
Which has been his entire life. People have trodden on him. And he thinks, right, now it has to change. And it doesn't change because the higher ups are still treating him badly. And physically, I get the shit kicked out of me a couple of times. And it all underlines this, is this still, this is still happening, is it? Okay, well, fuck you all.
Yeah.
It's great. It's such good fun.
Yeah. He's never been able to fight back like that, has he?
Never. No, he's never fought back. He's taken the beating and moved on.
Yeah.
And adjusted and adapted, but never retaliated. But now I can retaliate because I've got a dragon.
That's so interesting.
It's magical. And that's one of the moments. The first moment I put it down and went, is when I give the word fire. And the second moment I had to go was when I said, and fuck you too. Like, it's not like I'm betraying the blacks. Right. Yes, I am betraying the blacks. I'm also betraying the greens.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, fuck all of y'all. That is
so yeah,
crazy.
He's just Team Ulf at this
point.
point.
He's always been
that's
Team
true,
White.
That's true.
He's always been Team White.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty
Team
of
Ulf
playing
White.
Ulf. Like that is the joy and glory
It's gotta
of
be
playing.
fun.
Oh god, it's so much fun. I get to say stuff that no one else gets to say.
I feel like you and Alice Rivers are like the weirdest.
Yeah.
Or just like the most, like you can just get away with
the
stuff
most in a
very
different kind of world.
Yes.
That are just like we get brought in and go, he doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And then she comes, she doesn't quite fit either. So absolutely, Gail and I have lots of fun.
But also you're like, as an audience member, you kind of cheer Tom, like Ulf on, because you're like, he's saying what I'm thinking that no one else is going to say in the show.
I know that, and there's always going to be a degree of Marmitism with Ulf. You don't have Marmite in the States,
No, we do not.
Is that like it's not for everybody?
It's not you.
It's like a spread, some sort of a spread.
It's a weird,
it's a yeast spread.
Yeast spread, yeah.
And
very
the
enticing.
catchphrase is you either love it or hate it.
I see.
So that there's a degree of Ulf in that that
I didn't think I'd talk about Marmite in the house.
There's a Chicago version.
Certainly not with Americans.
Is that Malort?
Yeah.
Or licorice?
What do you have that's like Marmite?
Liquor. I think maybe licorice.
Licorice is probably the
licorice
best
is
one.
probably a
In
thing.
Chicago, there is a drink called Malort that
Malort.
is universally reviled, but charming in its own way at the same time. So I think that might.
Yeah, that's Ulf.
Yeah. Exactly.
Clinton and Kieran, do you think your characters saw this coming at all?
Oh, a mile away.
Really?
From the get-go. It's just because Addam is so respectful that he doesn't want to speak out of turn. If he could, he'd be like, this guy is going to betray us.
I think that there's been a reliability about Ulf the whole time, that because he is irreverent, that is actually, there's a lot of security there because we sort of know who he is.
Yeah.
And it's really useful for us on the periphery of it because they're all reacting to him. We get to watch how they behave. And right from the beginning, actually, since we went to Dragonstone, we've been counting against the aristocracy because just herding us all in like cattle, the way they treat everybody at every stage, they never back up what they say they're going to do. They don't give us, there's loads of opportunities. And obviously for me, I go in there having lost my daughter, and then because of the time, they're like, yeah, sure, you can go and see your wife eventually. You know, even in a week.
Yeah.
Even Addam calls Ulf out at the first dinner
Yes.
we had.
Yeah.
He's like, are you
calls me out.
afraid?
He calls
And then
me
he
out
goes, we'll
instantly.
see who's the character, because he knows from the get-go.
Yeah, even before that,
Yeah.
the aristocracy have because of the famine, because of the both green and black have both shown us exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And
We're common folk.
Yeah.
So like we've never believed or trusted in royal. It's like lots of people don't believe in politicians. Like we've been wronged we've been wronged before. And yeah, there's a degree of, doesn't matter whether it's blacks or greens. Those people in a position of power inevitably let us down or have let us down.
And that makes it a little bit more tricky for Addam because his two, relatives, his father and his brother, are now within.
Yeah, that's much harder.
So it's not necessarily very easy for him to just step back and look at it from the outside because now he's in the inside.
I also think they've totally underestimated the latent Targaryen insanity that's also in all of them. And that, they've given us these things. Oh shit, we forgot that we're all insane at heart. So there's that unpredictability.
Nuclear weapons.
And then they push you forgot we're all inbred, right? Yeah. You forgot we're all crazy.
Crazy.
Actually, what about me?
Yeah.
I mean, you three, you're probably the least inbred ones, really.
That's true.
Maybe.
Yeah,
well, maybe.
Actually, yeah. It's true.
It's true.
Scary.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
a broader
true.
mix.
It's true. We are the least inbred. Because we're furthest away from the core.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Marmite and inbred.
Inbred.
What you do today at work, guys? Talking about inbred and Marmite?
Daddy.
The justified anger of somebody who's been told they're illegitimate or cast aside. Yeah. Saying, no, actually, I'm more legitimate than you think I am. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm more legitimate than you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of actually seeming noble, I feel like Hugh is one of the closest characters we have to that.
Yeah,
absolutely, and just in terms of actual personal integrity.
Yeah,
and
but I think that for years, he's tried to live his own way. Being the son of somebody who has shamed the family, his mother being this wayward person who did their own thing, but then also trying to exist as a non-Targaryen and hide that and actually do something honorable himself. That's denying really who he is. But underneath it, he's an angry member of the family who was never really accepted.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of horrible succession anger there.
Well, he's now lost his whole family, which is his whole reason for having the dragon. Yeah. How might he react?
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. I think the insanity, if his entire trajectory has been security for his family, which the dynasty can't give him because he's been rejected by it and the shame of his mother. And not only that, but his grandfather, who had my dragon, he's inherited his grandfather's dragon. He's also inherited his grandfather's shame of his mum. So there's all this anger, and then suddenly he doesn't have the one thing that was anchoring him, which is I'm going to live for this woman in this way. So now that's it. All bets are off. What about me? It's back to that Targaryen selfishness.
You boys got a lot of family troubles
to worry
about.
It's great. There's so much to go with. It's brilliant.
Just be an orphan like me.
But that's it.
Who never knew his mother or father.
Well, you mentioned Addam calling out Ulf early on.
Yeah.
I mean, Addam also is pretty clearly hesitant about Rhaenyra and her conduct.
100%, because he seems to be the only person, at least from as Clinton's perspective, that is trying to retain his morality within the chaos of war. Because I've said previously that, when war happens, it sort of shows people, kind of like power, it shows you who you are, and a lot of people have changed. Even his brother is he doesn't recognize who his brother, this side of his brother, because Alan would usually probably come back from the war and change that and become the loving brother. He's never seen that chaotic side of his brother or his father or anyone, because he's never witnessed war before. So Addam is just trying to question within himself, what do I want to sacrifice in order to gain, or what do I want to keep but lose people and relationships? So it's a very crazy dilemma to kind of be in.
Yeah. And also his brother is kind of getting more drawn into the family dynamics. Yeah. How does Addam feel about that?
He doesn't feel good because it breaks up the dynamic that was set up between the brothers their whole life. It's like as I said before, he's starting to see that not even his family is, they're not protected from the kind of temptation of power in war. And as he sees that within his brother, it's like, oh my God, if you can change, then I don't know who I possibly have that will be kind of with the same perspective I have of staying true to who I am and staying morally grounded.
Do you think there is anything, if you could coach up Rhaenyra and Daemon and say, okay, here's how you deal with these three, what would you tell them to do keep you on side.
To value them appropriately.
Really
They don't value anybody.
No.
And I can appreciate that other people within their close circle, Jace, everybody, have gone against them or done things, thinking they were doing the right thing, but they haven't listened to their authority. So why on earth would the other people, the common folk, the small folk, in many ways, we're easier to play because we're literally telling them what we want.
Right.
I say this is what I need, and they completely ignore me. I think there was a scene, actually, when you ate all the quail, when we were sitting around the table, and I think Rhaenyra says to me, what do you want? I say, I've got a wife. There's a time limit here. Everyone is starving.
Yeah.
I'm sitting around a table with too much food. You're completely out of touch. They are utterly out of touch. They're really bad at accounting. They've totally miscalculated their assets. Yeah. Because not only are we extremely important, but we're also extremely dangerous.
Exactly.
And they totally take it for granted that our loyalty is absolute because of their arrogance. They're being completely arrogant and blasé about it. Exactly. And it's right in front of them. And he doesn't stop from telling them that from the minute we arrive.
I say, when we get knighted, I say, was that it? Are you fucking kidding me? That's not what I dreamed about.
They've got plenty of opportunities.
Yeah. I don't know, though. I mean, I definitely don't want to be a Targaryen apologist in this situation. Okay. However,
but please do
I will say, I think part of what's so complicated with your three characters is that they represent a threat to what Targaryens have always inherently believed to be their divine power.
Yes.
Right? So then it's like, but what do you do with the child who symbolizes everything that could be, that it threatens your own sense of self?
For centuries.
Right.
We have told the tale, only the purest of bloods can have a dragon. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What about these?
What about those guys?
It's that sort of undercuts our story and our position of power a bit.
Yes.
Because it opens the floor up a bit.
Yeah, it just creates, I can see how it would create so much doubt and fear in terms of their own right to rule.
It absolutely destabilizes their core.
But with all the evidence again that they have throughout the history of their family of Targaryens turning on Targaryens, even Jace saying at the very beginning, this is a fucking bad idea. What are you doing? They still think, no, it's fine. These guys are great. They keep asking for things. It's fine. Just
when'd you meet him?
He keeps slapping me.
Yeah.
Thank you all for taking the time
thank you
to
so
talk.
much.
And congratulations for making it through the season, honestly.
All alive. You've all made it.
I'll get medals.
Did you make? Yeah, you made it.
Survived.
Thank you, guys.
Now let's go to our next interview with the fantastic Phia Saban, who plays Queen Helaena Targaryen.
Phia, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, this was a tragic finale for Helaena. We're going to get there. But first, I think, especially just because I love Helaena so much, I would love to start on a slightly happier note. What were some of your favorite things about Helaena that you felt like other characters in Westeros just did not properly appreciate?
I mean, I feel like kind of the big tenet of the tragedy of Helaena is probably, as you say, the being underappreciated. And I don't mean in the sense that she feels she deserves some kudos that she doesn't get. I think that it's actually because her priorities and what she believes is beautiful about the world is just not of interest to anyone else. So in a way, I think that she's starved of kind of good conversation and sweet, fun things that she'd like to share with people.
It's also she's just so misunderstood. I think literally and metaphorically, but you think about this amazing skill she has that obviously no one really gets in terms of her being a dreamer.
Yeah, it's true. It's an interesting thing for me. She only knows not feeling understood. And I think she takes that as a state of being. And I think in a sense, she understands that other people don't feel as misunderstood as she does, but I don't think she really knows any different. I think she has relationships like her mother, for example, who, Alicent, she feels more comfortable with, or we see moments of her sort of letting her guard down with people. But she understands it's an aspect of her experience of being alive that she's not understood. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, I don't think she's like, well, if you all listen to me, then blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, of course. I mean, this experience, this sense I have, that's no different from the fact that nobody wants to talk to me about anything else either, you know?
I think she's underappreciated for her tapestry work as well.
Yeah.
Let's discuss the embroidery. I mean, when we finally get a look at it, it is stunning. Are you an embroiderer?
No. It became a bit of a thing on set because, well, for one, my boyfriend is. So
cool.
So I took when I say I took inspiration, I wear his embroidery and I love it, but it is on another level. I mean, Michelle Carragher's the lead embroiderer on this show, and obviously our amazing costume designer, Caroline McCall, and all of the people in that department are alien superhumans that can create all of that stuff. But every single time I was on set and they were like, by the way, we think Helena's going to be pulling a needle and thread this scene, which she obviously often is. It became a bit of a thing because there are such lovely people that would be I'd meet them in my trailer, and every 2 days before every single scene where I had to pull a needle and thread, I had to have a lesson about pulling like a needle and thread. Genuinely. It was genuinely embarrassing, to the point where like they'd come into my trailer and we'd all kind of laugh and be like, back, square one again, I guess. It was kind of embarrassing. In my dreams, I'm an actor who it's like like Daniel Day-Lewis when he did Phantom Thread and he like designed all his own clothes for like 10 years. I'm like the opposite of that. It's like the opposite.
They're threading it for you and they're like, here's how to poke it through again. We've already shown you this before.
Yeah, like in reality, all my actual clothes are falling apart and I don't know what to do. It's like genuinely the opposite. But no, what's gorgeous is that the title sequence is all of that embroidery, which I'm so enjoying seeing every episode. It feels like people maybe don't know that's Helaena, but in my humble opinion, that's Helaena.
That's how I interpreted it too. I think it's kind of a sweet through line because it is like she knows.
Yes.
But yeah, the question of like whether she knows is a really interesting one.
It is. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think like specifically about the scene where Rhaenyra comes to Helaena after hearing that Helena's a dreamer. And, speaking of the idea of like useful information, Rhaenyra is like, I need numbers. Like, tell me how many men are on the way. Like, she wants specifics.
Yeah.
And that is not how Helaena works.
No, you can't just like squeeze Helaena and she'll tell you like tactics of war.
Right. Or at least that's how I interpreted it. Do you agree with that? I mean, I guess another read could be like Helaena is intentionally being vague to not help Rhaenyra. But that wasn't really how I saw it.
It's not how I see it. I think that it's a sadness of it's like, the Cassandra, which we spoke about before, the like Cassandra trope,
totally.
Which is that she's not in control. She doesn't get to summon the things that would be good to know. I think I think it comes in a much more like insidious form. I think especially this season, we see it truly coming in dreams. And I think it's not different from how we have dreams. Like, but I don't think for Helaena, she's like manifesting. You know what I mean? I think I think that it's actually a sort of torture in some forms.
Mm-hmm. And when you say Cassandra trope, you mean like the Greek myth about the woman who can see the future, but nobody believes her.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's interesting about that is, and what I really loved about that scene when Rhaenyra starts grilling Helaena for stats and numbers and stuff, is I got the sense at least that Helaena would actually really love to talk about thoughts and feelings and the things that have come up in her dreams, but just not in this directed numbers and stats and analytical way that is that how you played her? Because I sense this like eagerness to share this and to understand it herself.
Yeah, I think that what felt really cool and live for me for like having a scene with Emma for the first time where, we could explore that dynamic for the first time in the series and the last time tragically, is that it made me really think, like, yeah, this is Helena's only sister. And what does she hope or think that relationship has the possibility to be? And how heartbreaking is it that it doesn't get to be what it could be? Or, does Helaena think like, this is this version of me in an alternate universe that is this like successful version of me, the one that was like chosen by my father, and is there a world where she has a similar experience to me, or is there? And like, I think there is definitely what maybe you kindly said you were picking up on, which was like hope for this connection that could be different to anything else Helaena has in her life, and which sadly doesn't come to pass.
The moment where she tries to connect with her over the beetles.
There's a beetle that emerges on the cusp of summer. It has lots of colours. Blue, gold, purples. It looks like a turtle. Have you ever noticed it?
I can't say I have.
You can only find it in King's Landing. It sustains itself on the waste of other creatures. It's beautiful.
Well, when summer returns, you'll have to show me.
You don't care about it. You're pretending.
It's such a quiet moment, but very heartbreaking. What do you think Helaena was trying to convey in that moment?
I think, well, my inspiration this season, especially from when Helena's really in like captivity, and it's something that I spoke to Sarah and Ryan a lot about, was Joan of Arc, and there's a great monologue from the Bernard Shaw Joan of Arc play, where it's so moving, where Joan basically speaks to her captors and she says like, you promised me my life, but this isn't life. You think that life is just being alive, and I have a much more rich and beautiful understanding of life. And for me, it's about, the things that she lists. She's like the wind in the trees, the baby lambs crying through the frost, the church bells, the feeling of standing on the hillside. And like, that's, for Joan of Arc, that's her relationship with God. And for Helaena, I think she's found meaning and, religion in nature. And that's what makes her feel less alone, and that there's something more to life. And I think that moment with Rhaenyra, when Helaena goes like, do you know that things exist that aren't useful to you? That there's beauty in the world, that there's a beetle that rolls its own dung that is beautiful. And like, that for me is such it's, as you say, it's like Helena's quiet rebellion. It's like being like, I have a relationship with this world that is about being connected to life and living things and beauty, the beauty of things that aren't useful. And I actually kind of think that that's her, that's in a way, that's her rebellion. To say, you don't care and you don't know, and I feel sorry for you, actually.
I think that's really beautiful. Do you think Rhaenyra hears it the way she kind of needs to? You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? I think what's the tragedy for Rhaenyra is that, but maybe if she stopped to consider things beautiful, or to consider that there's life outside of the throne, then everything would fall apart, because she's lost so much, hasn't she? And it's all, there's that terrible thing, which is like, was it worth it? Helaena says that again to multiple people, essentially, in so many words in this show. Like, was it actually worth it? And nobody wants to answer that question, because that's tragic.
Because the answer is no.
Yeah,
but so much.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Well, I kind of took it to that exchange about the Beatles as Helaena kind of trying to say, when you stop searching for things that will be explicitly useful to you, you will find things that are useful to you just by widening your gaze and letting more things come in.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. I think it's true. It's about perspective, isn't it? Yeah, if you looked, you might find inspiration in things that you think are meaningless.
Did you think about, when shooting the finale, like a moment when Helaena decided to jump, when she knew that this was what she was going to do?
It's really interesting. I mean, it kind of comes back to what we were saying, doesn't it? And also about the embroidery, which is that what you see in the final episode is that she's embroidered herself falling. And I got given the piece of the tapestry.
Oh, wow.
But essentially what you can see hanging on my wall is the end of the tapestry.
It's huge. That's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And it ends in this like wild way where, I mean, this is the embroidery team as well. They're genius. What you can see from it is that it starts getting all wild as you see it, like some like mental deterioration. And then it goes kind of euphoric and beautiful and she's falling. But it feels like she's building up to that. And I think that also makes me think about how they give you clues about your character, like walking into that Helaena bedroom and seeing all of her objects, seeing all of the things she's drawn, getting to look at the tapestries. It makes me feel more like Helaena, and it gives me like character points and characteristics and things that then help me with making choices, because that's how much everybody on this show like understands and cares about making these characters totally, three-dimensional. That it's like really cool. Seeing that inspired me with Helaena ideas. So yeah, I feel extremely lucky that I've got to work on a show where people are that talented and actually care that much that they like build this character around you, and you just stand there in the middle and then you're like, oh, I can do this. It's amazing.
What do you think Helaena would be doing if she were like free from all the bullshit of being a Targaryen?
Well, there's the chickens.
I love the chickens. I think that's I want that for her.
The chickens have captured people's imagination. I feel like there's a great, in one of my visions where you see these kind of you see like rage Helaena on her dragon, and you see Helaena on like a farm with her kids, and you see, I think for her, freedom is more represented by acts of freedom than an imagined life. I think that she knows the things that she wants to be near, like her family and her children, and access to like seeing things grow and living animals, and just that's like freedom to her.
So how would you sum up this experience over 3 seasons of the show?
I genuinely try not to, because I have no idea how to do it. I really feel like I've grown up doing this. I mean, it was my second ever job, my first like huge job. And it's really hard to put into words, but I feel like I've just got to watch these incredible actors and learn so much from them. Like Olivia Cook it feels so weird saying this because she's like one of my best friends, but I genuinely feel like she has taught me so much and guided me through so much, whether she knows she's doing it or not. Like, she's such a lover. And just feeling like collaborating with, as I said before, these departments, but like Ryan and Sarah, who are so open to ideas and so on the team of like, your character and you've created this character, so like go for it. And all of these people, I don't know. It feels like I'm just saying cliches, but it's hard not to, because I just don't know what, life-changing. It's life-changing.
Well, Phia, thank you so much for talking with us. This was a pleasure.
Guys, thank you so much.
Now let's go to our final interview of the episode with director Andrij Parekh, who directed the season finale. Andrij, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my great pleasure.
So
this is a huge finale after an epic season. I mean, I think about how huge that premiere was too. I'm curious what it was like when you first saw the script for this episode.
You know, the first read was pretty intense. And as I was flipping through each page, it was sort of like I was to myself wondering how I was going to do this and why they chose me. But yeah, it was, you know, I mean, the script was magnificent. The scope was insane, as, you know, hopefully the finale delivers. You know, I'd worked with Ryan in season 2, so, you know, knew a little bit what to expect, but getting a 55-day schedule was, for one episode was...
Wow.
That's wild.
Quite the gift and quite the challenge.
Wow. So you read that script, and obviously a very complex episode with a huge multi-layered set-piece battle. Where do you start?
Where do you begin?
Where does your mind go to first?
The first thing I did was I asked Jim Clay for a scale model of Tumbleton.
Oh, wow.
Because I was in New York. I went on Amazon and ordered little tiny action figures. And I spent most of the beginning of last year on the floor with a scale model with little tiny action figures like I did when I was 5 years old. And it was kind of amazing. And my wife would come upstairs and just see me like playing on the floor, you know, and looking at things, you know, through a little cardboard viewfinder.
Wow.
And that's where I began. Just sort of, you know, I think have a very sort of architectural brain, so it's very helpful for me to see things in 3D, and not just virtually, but actually physically. And so it was just a tremendous amount of fun, and it was really just biting off like little nibbles at a time, and not trying to think about how big this massive episode was, because I think I would have just been frozen and probably not showed up in England.
Are you thinking at that point when you have this little scale model, like, okay, drone shot here, steady cam this, need a crane for that?
It was really just working out the logic of how you would, lay siege to a town.
Mm-hmm.
The geographic logic of a progression of a script is very important. That things make sense, not only to myself, but then hopefully to an audience.
Right.
I feel like screenwriting happens in wide shots and in extreme close-ups. And I think cinematography does the same thing, allowing people to understand geography.
Yes.
And then you can get into the emotional details. But without that geography, I think people get a little bit lost. So it's really important to sort of set the stage for them. But by setting the stage only for myself first, could I then set it for them?
I think especially given the chaos of any battle, but then also the kind of claustrophobia that you end up experiencing with someplace like Tumbleton, where you have innocence, you have battle. I mean, that could so easily get very confusing, and I could totally see losing the story in that. But this is so focused, even when it is still chaotic at the same time.
Yeah, I think cinematographer Vanya Chernyul and I took a lot of references from 9/11. We were both in New York at the time, and it was really about, all of those photographs and all those stories of people just wandering through dust and soot and covered in ash, and seeing shoulders just covered in ash. And that's really the feeling we were trying to relay. I'm also half Ukrainian. My brother lives in Ukraine. And so war is a very present thing in my life right now. So it was, and it was just, this episode for me was not just about creating a battle, but showing the horror of what battle is and war. And, there is a victory in the end, but it's really a Pyrrhic victory, where everything is burnt and everything is gone. And then the question, is, you beg the question, like, why? In the first place.
So of that 55 days, how much was for the battle itself?
I think we had about 24 to 28 days dedicated to the siege of Tumbleton. I think I added a couple of gray hairs. I think everyone probably did during the whole making of it, but it was such a pleasure.
How much did you study or were you familiar with medieval battle tactics? I mean, clearly we're in a fantastical world. It doesn't have to be historically accurate, but it seemed to me, I mean, especially when it comes to kind of that first wave, climbing up the walls, it's like that's how you have to get in there, right?
It was watching a lot of movies, and then it was also talking to a couple of medieval advisors, which was an amazing experience. It's also strange to think that no one has firsthand. Well, of course, no one has firsthand experience, but that it's, we're all just trying to put together what happened without, there's no podcast to talk about Siege of Alhambra. But, but yeah, it was quite an education. It was. I feel like anytime you dig into something, it's so wonderful just to surround yourself with how it happened. And then once you get into how it happened, you can also sort of make those sort of side steps of how something, it gives you a little bit of poetic license to make things based on reality. And that's, for me, is the most fun.
I have to ask about the last charge of the Winter Wolves here. What was it like directing Tommy Flanagan?
Tommy was amazing. Tommy's a legend.
Yeah.
Tommy would show up on his Ray-Bans, like in his Winter Wolf costume, and he was just always awesome and always had an amazing attitude. And he's a big guy, right? And he wields a battle axe really well. He's perfectly cast.
He is perfectly cast. That chant that they do before they charge is so powerful.
Yeah, I just talking to Ryan about it, and it's basically written as in the script. It's the war chant begins, and so we had to create that chant, and so I was working with, like a sort of a dance coordinator, and it was basically it's a dance. So I was working with the dance coordinator, which was really funny to see the dance coordinator working with all these, big, burly, middle-aged guys. That for me is like the pleasure of doing this kind of work. It's like all the sort of anachronistic moments that come up in the making of, Tommy Flanagan, putting down his Coca-Cola and taking off his Ray-Bans.
The Ray-Bans is a great detail.
To go into the chant, and it was just like, it's so awesome, so much fun. But yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to put something together that would be terrifying, powerful. We watched the Icelandic soccer team.
Oh, cool.
And the fan chant is incredible. So we kind of leaned into a lot of sort of Norse mythology, and they are the Northmen after all. So
yes,
we also have to talk about Ormond and Roddy the Ruin's last stand. They're both killed by Silverwing's dragonfire.
Yeah,
what was it like to film that moment?
It was great fun to put their fight together with Rowley Earlham, stunt coordinator. That was so much fun. And a lot of it is just pushing to do something that hasn't really been done before. We all have seen battle sequences, and I think battle sequences get really boring really fast, especially when you lose character. When you're not with someone and it just becomes about a bunch of guys fighting, my eyes glaze over.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it was really just about sticking with someone and understanding their motivation, understanding what they were after. And having Roddy hunt down Ormond and that fight, and that fight went through probably about 50 iterations until we landed where we landed. And for me, like, fighting, it shouldn't be like they're not ninjas, right? And it should be messy, and it should be like a barroom brawl, and this armor has weight, and men are tired, and there's no glamour in it, and so it's really about removing the kind of smoothness out of it and making it really ugly, and hopefully we delivered.
To your point about keeping with a character perspective, there's these wonderful moments where you're kind of like ratcheting in and out from a wide perspective, seeing the battle, and then into Daemon's perspective as he's on the street, and you get this wonderful sound design where you're kind of hearing and perceiving events from his perspective. Tell us about that choice.
Again, that was really inspired by 9/11. And, what I imagine being knocked unconscious would be like coming to and basically, a literal fog of war. Fighting your way through the smoke where you can't see anything, where you don't know where anyone is, where you don't really even know what's happening. It was really about making it confusing, disorienting, deeply subjective, which we try to do with the sound design, making it feel like time had stopped or time was going then backwards or forwards, but just not having a sense of what or who or where or why. And then he comes out of it, and he's he goes into this kind of rage, and then Corlys stops him. And Corlys kind of pulls him out of this berserker moment that he's having, where he's totally lost his mind. And with losing his mind, he's lost his humanity. And I think that's like the things that we've sort of hold most dear to ourselves, I think, are the things that hurt us the most in the end. And his bloodlust is what he probably prides himself the most on, his fearlessness. And that's what comes to haunt him at the end of the Battle of Tumbleton.
It does seem like there's a real shift for him here, where it's like, wait a second. Why did I ask for this?
Why? And I think the rage that he goes into after his dazed moment is he has this rage even towards himself. And it's only expressed externally. I don't think Daemon as a character is one that really is that self-reflective, right? And so anything he feels is immediately turned outward. His Jungian shadow is on full display.
So who's ahead at this point?
It seems like a draw.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Everybody's lost.
Everyone's lost.
Yeah.
If there's a victory, it's definitely a Pyrrhic victory because there's no town left.
Yeah.
And both armies are demolished, and they're almost starting again from zero.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was my great pleasure, guys. I hope you enjoy the final episode of season 3.
Now, before we go, let's end with some parting words for the season. Normally, we talk to one specific character, but as it's the end of the season, perhaps we will give our parting words to the unsung heroes of this show, the dragons.
Heroes is a bit strong. Complicated characters.
Yeah, let's say, would you like to start?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mine is short and sweet.
Okay.
Install breathalyzers.
Okay.
Drunk dragon driving should not be allowed. It should not happen. I mean, that's clearly part of the problem here with Ulf. We saw it before with Aegon. It never goes well. And I just think the dragons got to shut it down,
I mean, there's nothing to hit up there.
Well,
you know what I mean? You're just... It's wide open. No traffic.
No, those are the most dangerous ones.
Right. Gosh, I will speak to... I'll address the dragons. Why not just be wild like Sheep Stealer? I would kind of rephrase Ormond's monologue to Corlys.
Hitting on Targaryen.
What do you see in them? The Targaryen element. What do you see in the Targaryen element, guys? What is it? Some ancient Valyrian blood magic, magic from old Valyria stuff? Just fly around. Seems like Sheepstealer's living a life. It's much better. Yes, there's a rider, but I think he's just doing that for shits and giggles. Like, I don't think
clearly he's not listening to the rider.
He just wants to share a lamb every once in a while and fly around with this little weird person on its back. I mean, that seems to me like the kind of best of both worlds. So think about it.
I kind of want to take that a step further and say ditch the riders altogether. Like, do you really need these people?
They seem to like it. There's something about it that, or else why would Sheepstealer do it? But,
I don't know.
But again, I think you're right. Why? Just be ungovernable.
Yeah. Lean in.
Fly around.
I love that.
Find your own caves. You want to be like, herded around, guys with sticks and stuff?
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah, come on.
Live your life.
Be free. Okay, that is it for this season. You can watch all of season 3 of House of the Dragon on HBO and HBO Max.
Yes, you can. And if you like what you are hearing and watching, please be sure to leave a nice little comment and rating and review on your podcast player of choice. You can also follow the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon social media handles. And you can watch us on Spotify, YouTube, and HBO Max. You can find me on Instagram at Greta M. Johnson and listen to my podcast, Happy to Be Here.
And you can find me on Instagram at NETW3RK. And you can listen to me on the podcasts X-Ray Vision and Wait a Second. And we'll be back to talk about the next season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and the 4th and final season of House of the Dragon. Until then, the official Game of Thrones podcast, House of the Dragon, is produced by HBO in collaboration with Same Boat Studios. This podcast is hosted by Greta Johnson
and Jason Concepcion, who also produces the show. Our executive producers for Same Boat Studios are Gabrielle Lewis and Barry Finkel. Our senior producer is Ben Goldberg, and the show is mixed by Hannes Brown, and our video editor is Stefano Sanchez. Our digital content producer is In-Sung Huang, and our studio engineer is Javi Cruces. Additional video editing by Ted Hayden.
Special thanks to HBO Max Concept and Design Studio, Liz Klokowski, Robert Pound, Zachary Taylor, Brian Kem, and Shabazz Burwell.
And to the HBO Max podcast team, Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen Sorokoch, Kenya Reyes, and Manya Whitney Miller.
And also to Melissa Bernstein and Clementine Donnell.
And thank you all for listening. I'm glad we got to go on this journey through season 3 together.